October 18th, 1999.
In Kosovo, the war is over, but the violence has not been stopped.
When you are facing a so high density of hatred, a culture of revenge, it will take years.
Kosovars battle Serbs to retake their old neighborhood and block the roads to keep Russian KFOR troops from moving in.
They don't want to live with the Serbs, and the Serbs, they don't want to live with the Albanians.
These are Bernard Kushner's problems to solve. He's the UN boss in Kosovo. But is that power enough?
And I'm not in charge of souls.
I must say, I think the situation here is much worse than I thought.
Can George Soros's money help? The billionaire philanthropist has put Kosovo on his agenda.
The fact that the Serbs have withdrawn into enclaves does not create a more open society.
Tonight, the boss and the billionaire. Can they combine to get Kosovo back on track?
From ABC News, this is Nightline. Substituting for Ted Koppel and reporting from Washington, Dave Marash.
11 weeks of NATO bombing got Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic to pull his troops out of Kosovo. Now they've been replaced by more than 50,000 international peacekeepers, including some 7,000 American soldiers and thousands more civilians working for the United Nations and, it seems, most of the do-good organizations in the world. But 4 months after the bombing ended, Kosovo is still awash in violence and uncertainty. The man charged with leading Kosovo from chaos to civility is Dr. Bernard Kouchner, a dynamic French physician-politician who 28 years ago helped to start the organization Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, which last week won the Nobel Prize for Peace. If he can bring even a measure of peace to Kosovo, Dr. Kouchner will deserve consideration for a second Nobel in his own name. And if energy, sincerity, and articulation can do the job, well, the Swedes should start drawing up the proclamation now. But Kouchner can't do it alone. He'll need cooperation from the Kosovars, both Albanian and Serb and other minorities. And he'll need all of that promised global assistance, human and financial. One respected source of advice and money is the Hungarian-American billionaire philanthropist George Soros, who's been to Kosovo, has sized up its problems, and is offering to buy some short-term solutions. The boss and the billionaire, can they team up to tame perhaps the worst trouble spot in Europe? Our report begins with Kosovo still bleeding.
Most of the recent news out of Kosovo has seemed like old news, bad old news. A grenade attack on a Serb marketplace kills 3 civilians. In response, Serbs block a main highway, a demonstration that in turn begets a mirror image roadblock manned by Kosovar Albanians. To most of the world, this translates as blah, blah, blah. Kosovo, pain, trouble, forget it.
We are starting from nothing. Nothing.
But this man refuses to forget Kosovo or to abandon it. Dr. Bernard Kouchner runs the place, a former French Minister of Health and the founder of the Nobel Peace Prize winning Doctors Without Borders. Kouchner is officially the special representative in Kosovo of United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan. Unofficially, he's the boss in Kosovo. All of Kosovo, its hospitals, where Kosovar Albanian doctors expelled 10 years ago want their jobs back.
When you are asking a doctor to come back to the hospital, he is facing him the Serbs with the same diploma, coming from the same university, in the same specialty, who were in charge. The Serbs were in charge in 10 years, and he was kicked out. This is uneasy.
This test will give me an assessment of your cardiovascular fitness.
Any questions?
Equally uneasy, another key Kouchner responsibility: policing Kosovo.
We have to retrain, and Well, we are rebuilding the whole administration.
I shall uphold at all times the law.
Kushner and his UN mission in Kosovo are in effect rebuilding a whole society, retraining police, swearing in judges, reopening schools. But behind all that is a plan Kushner says built on
Information, information, information. TV, meetings, political life, democracy.
3, 2, 1. Roll titles, please.
In Kosovo, the dominant medium for information is television, and one of Kushner's first achievements was getting a UN television station on the air with at least 2 or 3 hours of information every day.
I understand that you're interested in internet, media, school, police.
Absolutely.
There is another powerful man interested in Kosovo, George Soros, the billionaire investor and philanthropist. Soros met in Kosovo recently with American aid officials and staff from the local branch of his own Soros Foundation. At the top of the agenda, freeing the news media in Kosovo, including Serb news media.
So we're looking at trying to fund correspondence down here to feed into the Serbian, the independent voices in Serbia.
Absolutely, very important. I mean, you know, so let's, and I think there ought to be then a donors conference which then coordinates these efforts.
Soros has already made plans to invest in a Kosovar news agency, and he's also given money to Pristina's Radio 21. Soros' money helped buy the gear that got Radio 21 on the air from exile in Macedonia, and that keeps it on the internet around the world today.
Welcome to Radio 21.
Soros believes the internet is one of the levers that opens societies and keeps them free.
And our estimation is that more than 700 computers will really cover the most basic needs in universities in order to have whole faculties somehow equipped.
Soros is not simply Daddy Warbucks. He says no to as many proposals as he approves.
I came here to set up a foundation.
At a Pristina news conference towards the end of his visit, he's asked the inevitable question.
How much financial support is the foundation able to give?
Not that much.
Is the answer he gives us, explaining he's learned some hard lessons in another Balkan rescue.
I think that we spent a lot of money in Bosnia to not very great effect.
The big mistake that he and the UN made in Bosnia, says Soros, was investing too quickly in the political powers on the ground.
The politicians have their finger in every pie. I tried to set up an organization for small business development in partnership with the World Bank, but the government said all the money from the World Bank has to go through us. And so they wanted to control this thing, and I said, no way. So what happened? Nothing happened. I didn't do it.
With the old leaders of the KLA clamoring for early Kosovo elections, perhaps as soon as this December, Soros warns Bernard Kushner, hold off on that vote, because prematurely empowering a former guerrilla army.
It gives you no guarantees that it will respect those who don't agree with it. So very easily you could become party to establishing another one-party state.
With all the respect due to my friend George Soros, we know about the mistakes in Bosnia and we are not repeating at all. This is not the same situation. This is more difficult here. We are not rushing for election. George is right in telling us that the people must be in charge. But the people here, they were oppressed since 10 years, and before they were 20 to 30 years under a communist regime. So we have to build their sense of democracy from nothing.
Where should the building of democracy in Kosovo begin? Both Soros and Kushner agree one answer is in school. I'll be back in a moment.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Sears.
guaranteed to stop you in your tracks. Prices guaranteed the lowest of the season at a sale that's guaranteed to end real soon. Sears Days. Nobody else has a sale where you can save so much on so many different kinds of things. Kenmore to KitchenAid. Dockers to Die Hard. It's the sale for the season's lowest prices. It's only 12 days. It's Sears Days. The good life at a great price. Guaranteed.
Once a single library held the knowledge of the world. Centuries later, data was still controlled by an elite few. Then Oracle freed everyone to work with databases. Today, Oracle is putting the knowledge of the world online.
It's information that drives the internet.
Where do you learn about companies whose future is as limitless as our hunger to know? Exactly. NASDAQ, the stock market for a digital world.
Tomorrow, making money off of overwhelmed college-bound kids. Stiff competition has students paying for help. Watch ABC's World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
The fabrics you love to live in have one fatal flaw. Put them in the washer and their threads begin to wear. Introducing a breakthrough way to help stop wear. Liquifiber in New Cheer. It interweaves through cotton threads to help protect them, so the clothes you love stay the way you love them. New Cheer. Long live your clothes.
What if you could treat wrinkles like an expert would? With Rock, the #1 anti-wrinkle cream in France, you can. Developed with dermatologists, Rock's pure and active form of vitamin A works deeper, inside skin surface. In a 12-week study, the appearance of fine lines was reduced by 86%, wrinkles by 42%. Something more superficial beauty treatments could never promise. Rock, we keep our promises.
Started reopening 400 schools with 100,000 children.
The UN's boss of Kosovo, Dr. Bernard Kouchner, starts his spiel on schools with the good-sounding news, then readily admits that the real picture is not in those rosy numbers.
And this is not the real reopening, because real reopening with the rebuilding of half the school, because half of the school houses has been destroyed.
Like this school in the badly battered former frontline village of Unic, a school that George Soros had gone to see himself.
I just visited a village that is practically totally destroyed. The school is half preserved, and the children are all there in 2 shifts because they don't have enough classrooms.
And that's not all they lack at Unic School. Teacher Myremi Tofai.
The needs we have here are too many, starting with the broken windows. We are also desperate for textbooks. As you can see, there is only one book to be shared by 3 children.
Rebuilding the school is a job Soros will leave to the UN. But when it comes to textbooks, his money is already promised. This printing plant will soon turn from working on beer labels and identity cards to take up the task of printing textbooks. We could print in Serb language or Roma language or Turkish, says the proprietor of the Dukagjini Press. But right now, we're only asked for Albanian language texts. Soros people say that's because, for now, all Kosovar education is being offered only in Albanian. To this Serb mother in the city of Jelani, this is a disaster. My kids speak Serb, she says. They can't keep up in Albanian. This woman does not complain about her children being mistreated in the Albanian school in Jelani, but Kouchner admits other Serb parents could justifiably make that complaint.
We reopened mixed school, particularly yesterday or day before yesterday in Glenelg. Okay, now they are closed. Why? Because the people for the moment, awfully, they don't want mixed school. And this is another heartbreaking fact. I can open, this is easy to open school and eventually to print books. But tears are coming out from Serbs, children, when they will be beaten by the others.
Beatings, burnings, and worse crimes are still daily events in Kosovo, where the newly powerful Albanian majority is avenging itself on all minorities within reach. The solution to this problem and the problem of Kosovo's microscopic economy, says George Soros,
it's absolutely essential to foster regional development between Albania and Macedonia and Kosovo.
Soros's grand scheme is to place Kosovo, Albania, and Macedonia in the middle of a new Southeast European free trade zone, from Croatia and Slovenia to Romania, Bulgaria, and Greece, what he calls the Balkans without borders.
George Soros invented the name I invented 25 years ago with Doctor Without Borders. Very good. Well, I told you about. This is the future of this area.
But Kushner warns this future will come slowly. Think how long, he reminds, it took to build the model for this pan-Balkan economic union.
In the European Union, we were hating, and not only hating, but we were fighting each other in between the German and the French, and the British and the French, since centuries. And now, look. So, not only it might happen, but it must happen. It is impossible to imagine the future of Kosovo alone, isolated. The future of Kosovo is part of the region, which is part of Europe.
And what can the United States do to help Kosovo find that future? I'll talk to the National Security Council's point man for Kosovo when we come back.
Finished? No offense, I gotta close up.
I got heartburn, but I got
Pepsid AC? You should take Tums. All my regulars do.
Yeah?
Tums calcium goes straight to the heartburn to neutralize acid fast. Pepsid's got to travel all through your bloodstream, so it takes a lot longer to start controlling acid.
So you want Tums, or you want to wait?
Tums.
Feel better? Good. Get out.
When I was 9 months pregnant, my husband beat me. One night, he came after me with a knife and barely missed our son. I left. My kids and I ended up at a shelter. I realized it wasn't my fault. Women are beaten every day, and if we stayed, I knew he would hurt my daughter.
All across the country, battered women and children are starting new lives, thanks in part to Philip Morris, one of the largest supporters of programs that feed, shelter, and counsel victims of domestic violence.
But what frightened me most was that if we stayed, I was putting my son at risk of becoming a batterer himself. I grew up in a very loving home. My kids deserve to grow up in one too.
Working to make a difference, the people of Philip Morris.
Coming up, you can't hide the past.
Apparently the guy went in because he wanted to cover up Roseanne.
The Truth Hurts, politically incorrect with Bill Maher.
When you're active, the last thing you want is the uncomfortable itch of dandruff. Introducing new Head & Shoulders Refresh. It helps prevent dandruff, and its refreshing mint formula feels cool and stimulating on the scalp. No regular shampoo can give you hair so refreshed and flake-free. New Head & Shoulders Refresh from the Head & Shoulders family. Our refreshing way to help prevent dandruff.
We're everywhere you need us, where news happens and lives are on the line. News 2, each moment, each day, from the heart of the city to the fields and farms of your hometown. News 2 is there, first and fast, giving you details on stories and events that impact your life. From the Mid-South's most honored news team, this is News 2. First, fast, accurate.
Joining us here in our Washington studios, Ambassador Chris Hill is the Special Assistant to the President and Senior Director for Southeast European Affairs at the National Security Council. Ambassador Hill, thanks for joining us this evening. Bernard Kouchner says, frankly, it's going to take generations to bring about a civil Kosovo. Does that mean American forces are likely to be there for generations?
Well, let me say, as Dr. Kouchner's point envisions, it took a long time for Kosovo to get into the shape it's in, and it's going to take a long time to get out of it. I'm not going to make any prediction about how long international forces are going to be there. We're there with our European allies. We're also there with Russian forces. We're participating in a UN mission, and we're going to try to get Kosovo on its feet as soon as we can.
Just last week, the Secretary General Kofi Annan was in Pristina and seemed to wrap Dr. Kouchner across the knuckles a bit for moving too fast to set up the Kosovo Protection Corps with the former KLA guerrilla commander at its head, the Kosovo Police Force, whose first graduating class was also commanded by a noted KLA commander. What's the United States position on this? Is Dr. Kouchner moving too fast?
You know, it's hard to fault people for moving too fast. There's a lot that has to be done in Kosovo. Police is one of those things. We need to get police that are properly trained in how to be real policemen in our sense of the word, not policemen in the old dictatorship sense of the word. So Dr. Kouchner has moved very fast there. We also need a program to find a way to get former fighters from the Kosovo Liberation Army into civilian life, and that is the point about setting up this Kosovo Protection Corps, and they're moving ahead, and we're certainly helping as best we can.
In addition to criticizing the pace of change, Kofi Annan also seemed unhappy with the direction of change. He stated very strongly that independence was not the goal that the United Nations had in mind for Kosovo, but almost every Kosovar thinks that's what they want. Where does the United States stand on this, and how does it square with our history of self-determination as a rule in foreign policy?
Well, we have made very clear that we do not support Kosovo independence. What we do support, and what we're working very hard to achieve, is to create democratic institutions, to create a market economy, and to create space for Kosovo to be part of the region and part of Europe. So the real issue right now is interdependence, that is figuring out how Kosovo can be a part of Europe. And, you know, right now as we're talking, there are people in Kosovo trying to stretch plastic across a couple of blown out walls in order to find a place to sleep at night. And that's really the issue of trying to get those people warm tonight and not to be talking about things like independence.
What about talking about things like free elections and democracy? The KLA has said they'd like to see free elections before the turn of the year. Dr. Kouchner has already ruled that out as too soon. But what does the United States think is the right time for free elections?
Well, I think the right time for free elections is whenever the conditions are ready. And what do I mean by that? The conditions have to be such that we know we have some sort of voter registration lists, some sort of census lists. We need to know where people are living. So there's a lot of things to do, because these elections are very important, because we want these elections to be ones that are free and fair and enjoy the support of everyone who participates, including the people who lose. So I think it's very important that we wait until the moment when it's ready. At this point, it's hard to predict. Most people are talking about, for municipal elections, sometime in the order of the middle of next year.
Right now, one of the two hottest spots in Kosovo is a town called Orahovec, where the Russians are being blockaded by Albanians and not permitted to play the role assigned them on the KFOR agreement. This role was specifically assigned them despite the fact that this is an area in which Russian, quote, volunteers are accused of hideous war crimes during the bombing period. Was it a mistake for Secretary of Defense Cohen to have agreed to place the Russians in Arahovets?
Well, first of all, let me say that we're very pleased that Russia is participating in KFOR, and we are working very well with the Russians, and we intend to continue to do so. We believe that there will be a solution to this standoff in Arahovets. There have been some ideas there for how the Russians can be deployed there, and we believe that this situation will get solved.
Very briefly, why has KFOR not moved against those barricades? They've knocked down other Albanian barricades in Kosovo.
Well, KFOR has made very clear that at times they will move against barricades, and other times they will find out another way to get the barricades removed. You know, it's a very tough job doing what KFOR does, and I think we can all be very pleased that they've been able to get things done and using a variety of means, and I'm sure they'll get this solved as well.
Ambassador Chris Hill, thank you very much for joining us. I'll be back in a moment.
As you might expect, Teller and I don't see eye to eye on investing. I like to avoid risk. Teller's a little more daring. We do, however, share the same new way to trade online.
Introducing PowerStreet by Fidelity, the first site with trading tools customized by Lycos to fit your life, your goals, your unique way of doing things.
Look, the market's up. Or, in your case, down.
PowerStreet Online Trading. Call or visit Fidelity.com to open an account.
Tuesday, a career in jeopardy.
Did they offer you my job?
Nobody's blaming you, Dana.
Everyone's blaming me!
It will take the ultimate sacrifice to make it right. William H. Macy guest stars on an all-new sports night.
Then on Once and Again.
Dad, are we never gonna be a family again?
For two single parents, the hardest thing about starting over.
He wants you to get back together?
Is letting go. Cela Ward and Billy Campbell in ABC's Once and Again, following Sports Night Tuesday starting at 9:30, 8:30 Central.
History teaches us many lessons, one of which is few things last. Like a Moen faucet. Moen, buy it for looks, buy it for life.
You folks want to try a Reason?
Sure, why not?
I'll try one. Oh, please, help yourself.
Just right.
Not too hard, not too soft.
Really chocolatey.
Can I try another one?
Mighty chocolatey, mighty Reason. You gotta try them.
Labor of love took on a whole new meaning when Kyle was born. 12 hours of labor.
One of life's most joyful moments can also be one of its most painful. But take comfort, as so many women have, in Tylenol, the pain reliever doctors and hospitals choose most.
Come meet your little brother.
Hello. Tylenol, take comfort in our strength.
Finally, a program note. Tomorrow on Good Morning America, the first of a 3-day series on Alzheimer's disease. A series of family journals called The Long Goodbye, beginning tomorrow on Good Morning America. That's our report for tonight. I'm Dave Marash for Nightline in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
Nightline is always on with abcnews.com, part of the Go Network. You can order a transcript or video cassette of this or any other Nightline broadcast by dialing 1-800-CALL-ABC or visiting abcnewsstore.com on the World Wide Web.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
ABC Tuesday. Caitlin, Mike, the mayor, and one chair.
I'm close. Why are you so uptight?
I can't do my job if I'm not perceived as the guy behind the guy. Now she's made me the guy behind the girl behind the guy. Which sounds like fun.
Spin City, then it's like, see you Tuesday on ABC.
Come on, sweetie. Come to mommy. That's right. Come give mommy a big hug.
Right now at Doctor's Value Vision, get 2 pairs of glasses for just $99.95. That's right, 2 pairs for just $99.95. Perfect for those little mishaps. And you can choose from a wide selection of stylish frames. 2 for $99.95 from Doctor's Value Vision.
Introducing the only disinfecting spray that kills 99.9% of bacteria around the clock.